Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
This is Ryan.
And this is
I
Alex.
did it again. When you're
I
so,
thought it was just a new tradition that we were going to go with.
we're just going to introduce each other because we're not only people who love their own opinions. We're gentlemen, damn it.
Hell yeah.
There it is. We are here one last time for this season to dissect uh, and talk about Survivor Season 40 Winners at War. We had our finale last night. The finale!
Episode 14, baby.
Episode 14. It took a lot of grit, I think, to get through this season.
I
Uh,
feel like I had to dig deep to get through season 40.
as much as Jeff Probst would yell at the players, "You need to dig! You need to dig deep!" I'm sitting here going, "I'm digging deep just to finish this." Overall, though, uh, I think it was a fun season. I wouldn't call it a fantastic season. I think Jeff Probst went on multiple times saying, "Greatest season we've ever done." And I think he only feels that way for reasons we'll get into later. But yeah, Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff definitely bookended this episode, the start and the finish, and even the season, saying this is the greatest season of all time. Do I agree? Not a chance. Poopy pants. But there are moments
Oh,
where I think we had some of the greatest moments in Survivor history for
oh,
sure.
sure. Absolutely.
Um, and some of them I will talk about this episode. I mean, non-emotional me, I think I cried twice, and we'll get to it. But I was like
Same.
overwhelmed with how emotional I got at certain points of this episode, and I think that's a fantastic thing. So, if this is what we get after 40 seasons of Survivor, I'm not upset.
I'm not mad about this season. I do think it was a lot of fun to watch. It was sad to see some of my favorite players get voted out. It was fantastic seeing some players I wasn't particularly happy about seeing play again get voted out. So yeah, there are lots of highs and lows. Overall, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, let's get going.
Let's get into it. Okay, so right off the bat, the whole thing is a little wonky. Like Jeff is like, because of what's going on in the world, I actually have to film from my garage, and he shows this like Survivor IKEA like build up. I'm so confused at why it even needed to like be. We don't have time to interview any of the people at the very end, but let me show you my garage from a wide angle.
That's one of those. There are Survivor fans who were living for a make your own tribal council set kit that you can buy at IKEA. And there are people that are like, I'm going to buy one if they make it. I'm not going to build one myself. And I gotta be honest, I'm kind of here for it. For Jeff Probst to kind of be like, this is the garage, this is that, this is that. I'm like, can you at least like ask, I don't know, anything resembling an interview question to any of the final five? No? Okay.
With all things considered, I get it. I understand why it was formatted this way, and
And
I
I'm
will
just a brat.
I will point out later when it comes up that I think there was a huge moment that you probably know what I'm going to talk about because I've been ranting about it for almost every episode that I've felt since season 7 of Survivor that I realized as a casual fan that has bothered me, and it got addressed. And I think if we only had a 2-hour finale with an hour reunion or a 2.5 with a half hour, I don't think we would have gotten this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we did. So I'll allow no
Okay.
scene or something like that. But I hope that with all the free time that they're gonna have, that maybe they can do like a hey, let's do a Zoom, blah blah
I really hope. That was the really weird thing to me. Everyone's like, oh, it's a 3-hour finale. I was like, the finale is always 3 hours if you include the reunion.
blah.
So,
Right.
oh, it's just, as usual. And then they were like, oh, yeah, no, we're not doing a reunion. It's 3 hours. I was like, oh, does that much go on? That much doesn't go on. But it was still good. It was still fun.
It gave us some moments that I'm glad we got to see that I think absolutely would have been on the cutting room floor otherwise.
Agreed.
Jeff definitely kicks off the episode. He's putting the wind in the sails here. He's like, again, repeats greatest season of all time. He says, quote, it's unpredictable. It's a beautiful, bloody battle.
It was.
Wasn't was it unpredictable? And I'm glad I wrote that down because I literally was like, you're going to revisit this statement at the very end of this episode and you're going to answer, was it unpredictable? There were things that were unpredictable, but ultimately the ending is kind of what we always saw coming.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, I think that I don't envy the position of the producers because it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Right.
And I think that if they don't show the person who winds up winning, like excelling at challenges, doing the wheeling and dealing and all that stuff, like, yeah, there is a semblance of, if we don't get a winner that we can say, well, these are all the things they did, then yeah, there's kind of an outcry and Michelle wins. So then, what was it? After that, it's very much just like, well, it's fine that you do that, but maybe you show a little bit more, instead of like 18 confessionals for one player in one episode, even though we did a lot, it's like maybe show like 14 confessionals and then at least give everyone else one. So
Right.
I found that to be very, very interesting, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't very unpredictable in any capacity.
They threw two big Hail Marys at different points in this episode with trying to convince us that Sarah had a shot to win and trying to convince us that Natalie had a shot to win. But neither one paid off, which, you know, give it to the editors. Like, they tried.
Exactly. So what did you think? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to the Edge of Extinction challenge that kicked off the episode. Okay, perfect. So we get to Edge. They all come in. We know that Natalie, Yul, Parvati, and Wendell all have challenge advantages. Natalie has 3 of them. This challenge it's very much like almost a rehash of the first Edge returning challenge. It's like you have to go through a wibbly wobbly of rope, and then you have to dig for the thingy. And it's like, it's either like all Edge challenges that we've seen before or all challenges that we've seen throughout the season before. And like the little snippets, it's basically like, there are 8 parts that we can use for an Edge challenge. Let's put 4 in this one and 4 in this one.
I mean, I was gonna say, I know CBS got money, but hey, it's a business, so I'm not mad at them. I was the one sitting there going, where was this challenge when we got like 3 balance on this random thing challenges?
See, I would have wanted like a all-out like Survivor pull-out, like, you want to get back in this game, you're gonna hang on this floaty post for 18 hours. Like, that's what I want. I don't want like who can handle this stress the most. I want like who wants it the most. Who wants to die on the post.
There's absolutely that, and I'm a firm. I've missed that challenge. I think they stopped doing it because Jeff Probst was like, I don't want to be out there for 10 hours. And I do not blame Jeff Probst for feeling that way, because I know I would feel identically to him. He's like, well, we're gonna do like the endurance challenge, and we're gonna make them, you know, hold, like we're gonna make them like work against gravity, or we're gonna make them hold like some crazy amount of weight, because craft service is only open for so long, and I need a massage before I go to bed. I'm cranky. So I'm here for it. I was very, I don't know, I love Natalie, and obviously going into the challenge as one of the people I chose to be a player in this season, I was obviously rooting for Natalie. I would have been fine with like Yul or Parvati coming back, just because I think they have a really good shot of making something interesting. Even Boston Rob, but even then I was like, no, I'm all right. The challenge itself, who are you like kind of rooting for, gunning for to win?
I mean, from the start, I really wanted Natalie. I kind of put all of my eggs in her basket. That was literally the first thing I wrote when they all walked out. Was like, "Go Natalie, please!" And like, you know me, I really love Yul and Ethan and Parvati and Kim, and I would be really happy with any of them coming back in. But for me, Natalie has like the most potential, I think, of anybody returning to change the game in the way that it needs to be changed. So, you know, of course, I'm rooting for her.
Yeah.
How about you?
I was rooting for Natalie for sure. Like I said, there's plenty of people I would have been fine coming back. I think part of me almost felt like if I were a Nick. I'm kidding. If I were like a Sophie or a Kim or someone who didn't have any challenges, obviously I would try, but it would almost just be like, I'm supposed to somehow come from behind from a person with 3 challenges or 3 advantages in this challenge. I'm supposed to come from behind and beat them. It's like, It's like being a social or an actual like ethnic minority in society, and it's like I can sure as hell give this effort, but do I really feel like it today after starting for, depending upon the person, weeks at a time?
Well, I mean, okay, so you're not wrong. But to peel it away from something so heavy, Tyson does actually end up being the furthest ahead at the very end of this challenge, which is surprising because he didn't have an advantage.
Didn't he
Uh,
have fun?
he did not. So he caught up really fast.
Yeah,
Wendell at some point was actually farther ahead than Natalie, even
yeah.
though he only had one advantage. So it kind of did become a great equalizer.
Oh, I
And
must have misheard. I must have misheard you. Did you say Wendell didn't have an advantage?
Wendell had one.
Okay,
Tyson had 0. Yeah,
who didn't?
Tyson.
Oh, that's right. I thought you said Wendell did not have any advantages. That's right.
No.
He did.
Wendell was the first person to the board, but Tyson was the first person to get a ball in the hole on the board. And of course, I'm thinking, oh no, it's deja vu.
Oh my God.
Tyson's gonna come back again.
I was sitting here like dying because I'm like, why did Natalie share peanut butter with Tyson? Why is this happening? And when Natalie got tripped up on that rope, my heart was just sinking because I'm like, it almost seemed like there seems to be like a buildup, like Natalie's coming back, and for that to happen, I'm just like, oh my God, I'll never believe in myself to be able to do anything
It
if she
was
can get back in this damn game.
it was so intense. I was completely convinced that Natalie was just out of it. Even when she got to the rolly board, I was like, she's out of it. Like, this is Tyson, this is Wendell. Like, they're good at this stuff.
I just wrote, is Wendell coming back? What does that mean? And I literally was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna think if Wendell comes back. I wouldn't be mad at it, but that was like a moment where I was like, oh it's Wendell. It has to be.
Well,
That does not happen.
it ends up being Natalie. I just started scribbling on my paper. I wasn't even writing words. I was scribbling. Natalie wins, has a complete emotional breakdown,
Like you do.
like I do. I was so thrilled.
Yeah.
And it was just, I actually started crying. I don't cry. I was crying. I was so happy for her because I can't imagine how hard it has to be. And she literally, say what you want about the Edge of Extinction because yes, it's a bullshit
I
twist,
will.
and we will. But she couldn't have played more perfectly with the game she was given,
Yeah.
and she did it. Like it was a full circle thing. It was so impressive. So
No, it was great. I think if anything, it was one of those situations where it's like, even if she got back in the game and was immediately voted out, it's like just the fact that she hung in that long at Edge. And some people would argue, like, oh, well, she got more fire tokens because she was there the longest. She had the most opportunities. And I'm like, when she's like the person with the most tokens at like 8, and then the next person has like 6, I'll buy it. Like, I'll nibble at that. That's fine. But I'm sitting here going, girl had how many tokens? And who was in second place? She definitely had more opportunities, but it's not like,
well, and I don't want to shit down Amber's throat, but Amber got there one day after her, and had 2 fire tokens that she gave to Rob.
something like that. So it's like, part of it I think is luck. Part of it, I think Rob finding 3 of those coins before anyone else and no one seeing him get 3 coins is a little suspect. But that's just me. They have this really great moment after Natalie wins where they start talking to pretty much the jury at this point, and asking like what the moment feels for them. I gotta be honest, I think that more than anything is what got me teary-eyed. Talking to Kim, talking to Amber, who I think I've grown to appreciate Amber so much more in this season because I think being like married to Mr. Survivor, like there's a sense of humility in her that, I'm sure was always there, just maybe I wasn't really looking for it, or maybe it just wasn't really shown. But like hearing her talk about her husband, I'm just like, damn, say what you will about whether you love Rob and Amber, hate Rob and Amber. Those are 2 people that love each other. Like, and that was very actually sweet to kind of get that moment and to be brought into that. I thought that was really cool.
It was nice to get some Amber in the last 2 episodes. Like, I feel like both of the things we really saw from Amber were like A+ stuff. Like Amber talking about how it's going to be kind of sad to leave the Edge because it's a clearing experience for her, and then talking about how she knows that the reason why she won All Stars is just because people hated Rob Moore, and it was kind of like unintentionally funny, but I did kind of LOL when Jeff was addressing Amber. Like, we had just gotten this epic speech from Kim. It was like really fantastic about how like she won her first time, but she feels like she actually gained more this time from how she had to play, and I thought that was really cool. And Jeff said to Amber, why are you out here? Like, it was just like, if you take it out of context, it's like, why are you here? Like, what? Why are you?
I don't know, Shade. Why'd you call me?
It was so funny. But you're right. There were so many powerful moments here. I think, for me, the ones that stood out the most were probably Kim and then Ethan. Of course, like that's gonna happen, but it's just really it was fun for me this season to go so all in on Ethan because he was one of my least favorite winners ever.
Really?
Heading into this season, and I just really ended up rooting for the guy, and I appreciate his journey so much more. And hopefully the next time I watch Africa, which will probably be the 5th time I've seen it, hopefully I appreciate him a little bit more.
I don't think I've ever watched an entire season more than twice.
My God, I've seen Vanuatu 15 times.
Vanuatu was a season worth watching 15 times. I'm just not going to do it. I was going to say that the winner just makes me too upset. What do we have that happens after?
Pretty much right after these moments, we say goodbye to the jury. They all go off to Ponderosa. Thank God for them. I'm sure they're excited.
Yep.
And then we head into a confessional right before we hit commercial.
I did write down, I felt like this was the longest commercial-free segment we've ever had in the history of Survivor, which I thought was great. But then they made up for it by having like 2.5-minute segments of show afterwards with a 3-minute like commercial break that followed it.
For sure.
I felt like I was watching The Bachelor at some points just because I was like, oh my gosh, nothing has happened.
They give one confessional after this whole Edge of Extinction challenge, and it goes to Tony. And for me, I'm like, Tony wins the game. Like, Tony just won the game. Because if you're not going to go to, like, Natalie for that confessional about winning the Edge of Extinction challenge, I don't know. I was like, that's clear foreshadowing. They're like, you can't forget that Tony exists right now because he's going to win the game.
Yeah.
But we head to the beach, and Natalie just full on in front of everybody, including Tony, is like, everybody on the jury is obsessed with Tony. Like, you need to get him out. Sarah is talking to Tony, and Tony's worried about Natalie just getting taken to the end, and Sarah's just kind of like, no, Natalie doesn't win at the end. Like, she's not a threat. We don't have to worry about her. Tony is worried that Natalie is going to get to the end and pose a threat to his win.
I almost wonder if he actually thought that, though. I'm only going to interject purely because Tony can't be like, oh, I want to get rid of Natalie because she's determined to get rid of me. But I can't say that to my alliance. So I'm just going to be like, no, she goes to the end, she wins. It's possible he really was genuinely concerned, a la Chris Underwood winning the season of Edge of Extinction. Maybe he was. Part of me almost just wonders, like, did he actually worry about that? Because
I kind of think it was 25-75 of Tony just wanting Natalie out because she was throwing his name out, and then 75%. Okay. I think Tony wanted Natalie out because he was worried that Ben and Sarah would be tempted to take Natalie to the end, thinking that people will never vote for a returnee.
Yeah, like I get all that. I struggle to think that Tony's main motivation for wanting to get Natalie out had anything to do with fear that she would win.
Yeah.
Maybe, like I said, maybe he did. I just thought it was an interesting dynamic watching that kind of unravel. And then my personal favorite bit about Natalie doing that was immediately Tony, and then eventually Sarah, and I want to say Ben as well, were like, well, that's only if she's telling the truth. And I'm like, so let's see if I got this straight. Natalie comes back from Edge of Extinction, and just to throw out a name, Denise is like the hands down favorite for everybody to come back or to make it to the end and win. If Natalie knows this and wants to make it to the end and win, why is she going to run into camp and say Tony is everyone's favorite? How does doing that benefit Natalie in any way?
That's a fair point. I didn't think about that way. What I thought was like, if Natalie's lying, what do you have to lose? If Natalie's telling the truth, what do you have to lose? Like, let's consider these things.
Exactly. And I'm the person who's like, unless like it's kind of like a, oh, well, I'm going to say it's Tony, and they're like, it would make more sense if everyone was like, Natalie has to have an idol. She probably has an idol. She's trying to like divert our attention onto Tony so that if an idol's in play, it'll be played on Tony and she'll just take out somebody else. Like, who knows? Who absolutely knows? But I'm just sitting here going, how is she remotely going to benefit in this situation? If you guys are convinced she doesn't have an idol, which is the only person who seemed to even care that she might was Tony, like how does it benefit her to say Tony is the front runner in the minds of the jury if he's not actually the front runner? I just thought that was fascinating.
Oh, for sure. The other moments that we get before the challenge are mostly Sarah-centric, it seems. She tells us in a confessional that Tony would not be here without her. She's talking with Tony, and she's saying, I was not your puppet.
Well, I'm living for all of that.
She says this line, just because a man and a woman are working together doesn't mean a man is calling all the shots. And thank you, hallelujah. Finally, someone says it. Justice for Dawn.
Justice for Dawn.
Justice
for Chrissy. Justice for Hannah. Justice for them all. They're all legends. She had that great line, longest, or what was it? Another one that she really said that I was like, yes. She was like, if you won and got the money, you still wouldn't have gotten there without me. And she was like, if I get to the end, or if I got the money and won, I wouldn't have gotten here without you. And I was just like, power to Sarah. If anything, I'm just like, it's got to be that when you're in the game, because as watchers, we just look for like the bold moves, the blind sides, those sort of things. Like we as fans of the show don't get as much time to really watch people build these connections and build these relationships. Because Sarah having Tony vote out her ally Sophie and then do absolutely nothing without him and thinking, okay, Tony did a move without me, I need to move without Tony. I'm like, but why? Because Tony has this resume now, and he's got the immunity wins, all these things, and I'm just like, I'm struggling, but I found that fascinating.
Yeah,
but I loved the sense of girl power for one. Boys can suck it, and I'm playing a great game. All of which, in the case of Sarah in this finale, I'm like, where's the lie?
Fair enough. So we head into immunity. They kind of preview the challenge. It's like this big sort of obstacle course thingy, where you have to run upstairs and drop off puzzle pieces, and at the very end, it's a puzzle. So I don't know if I was like foreshadowing in all of my notes, because literally like every time we saw something, I'm like, okay, well this could happen. So I'm like, okay, Michelle could excel in the puzzle at the very end, and then they start the challenge, and she is slower than molasses, honey. Like she takes longer on the planks than like everybody does in the first two parts of the challenge.
Well, and I think I did notice that. I did think that the part that she and Denise both started on was obviously of the three going to be the one that took the most amount of time. But I feel like Denise is probably like 5'1".
Yeah.
I don't know how tall Michelle is, but the fact that Denise got off and Michelle was still like a quarter of the way
twice as fast. Michelle was like 3 planks in and Denise was done.
I found that really fascinating. I forgot until Jeff said it that Michelle had won that challenge previously. I was like, oh, good to know. But I also, yeah, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I mean, there wasn't much to really remark about the challenge except for towards the end. Everybody but Michelle is up at the top of the stairs solving their puzzles, but are they solving their puzzles? No.
The answer is no. Can I take a pause real quick just to say that slide looked like the most fun thing on the planet?
It would be like a terrifying, amazing thing. Like, I feel like after 37 days of Survivor, you're like, I'm not even scared about this thing. Let me just go down and go sideways and flippity flop. But that's a
Right.
big drop. That's a
That is
big
a big drop. We used to have a water park here in Vegas that had a very steep slide, and that was my favorite thing on the planet. So,
there's this amazing Volcano Bay. It's in Orlando. It's like a I don't know the word I'm looking for. It's like a side theme park, water
okay.
park of Universal Studios.
Oh, okay.
And they have this drop, and it's like legit. You get like encased in this thing, and you just stand there until the floor pops out from under you.
Like a
And
rocket.
it like sucks you down so fast you can't open your eyes because there's so much water going by. So you just feel your body like, whoa. It's
Like,
how I imagine.
what is it your body feels?
Whoa! It's how I imagine, like, if you for one day could be that thing that goes through like the bank drive-throughs that like your money gets suctioned up into. That's like what I imagine that water slide is.
Oh, this is my favorite episode ever. Oh my god, so funny. No, we had the same thing. Ours was shaped like a rocket, so like you get in, and then it would like tilt so that you'd be like aligned with the slide, and then it would just drop you out.
Yeah.
But we digress. But
Anyway.
that's fantastic.
So Michelle puts on a masterclass in puzzle solving. It was actually like I had secondhand embarrassment for everybody that was up there that was like, how is Michelle putting this puzzle together? I'm like, she's measuring height. Like, it's not that difficult.
I'm terrible with puzzles, generally speaking, and I feel like I need to get better at it if I'm ever to fulfill my dream of going on that show. No, if I ever go to any challenge or if it's my week to go and it's a puzzle at the end, no, I'm not going to win that challenge. Like, you should know in your heart, you shouldn't even get your hopes up. And I'm sitting here watching, it's like, they're not even getting like close. It's like, and the whole time I'm just thinking, Michelle can't win this immunity because if Michelle wins immunity, she's immune. Natalie has an idol. Ben has an idol. Tony has an idol. And that's going to give a 50-50 shot that my favorite player of the season is going to go home. Spoiler alert. So I'm just like, please, someone please, after Michelle or after they peek off of Michelle, let someone figure out the math, the algorithm, the anything so that Michelle does not win. Which does not happen, which was so heartbreaking.
Did you miss it? Because on Michelle's second tier, when she put the flat platform on top, I got a little nervous because there was an edge of her puzzle that was like tilted out. And I was nervous that like the whole thing was going to fall down. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's going to take over. But it doesn't happen. Nobody even gets close. It was like super embarrassing.
Dreams don't come true unless you're a man. So
yeah, I was super bummed because unless there's a miracle pulled off here and we convince somebody not to play their idol, it's a woman going home because the boys have the idols and we are literally one step away from Advantage Gate 2.0.
we were one idol shy of Advantage Gate.
Yeah, which if that says anything about the game. Michelle completely dominates the challenge. She wins an immunity. It's actually like, for me, it's an impressive win because of how dominant the puzzle solving was. Like, it's probably up there in terms of like really bad look for everybody else, really good look for Michelle, so kudos for her. Natalie gets back to the camp and she says that she's going to go look for an idol. She's kind of putting on a ruse for people. And we have this line from Ben, and I could not let it go. He says, a smart survivor would say split the votes, but, and then he goes on to like finish the line, but I'm like, you literally just said a smart survivor player would say split the votes, but, so are you recognizing that you're not a smart survivor player because you don't want to split the votes? That was just really funny to me. But Ben is convinced and Sarah is convinced that Natalie does not have an idol. Tony wants to split votes on Denise. Meanwhile, Michelle and Natalie are becoming a little bit of a dynamic duo. Natalie reveals to Michelle that she has an idol. The girls know that they now have 2 votes together heading into the top 5, which is, not enough, but it's a start.
Yeah.
Anything really big sticking out to you here before we head to tribal council?
Not really. I didn't. I don't think I wrote too much down as far as like the scheming and the strategy, just because it seemed like I felt like I pretty much knew who was going to go home, and watching the strategy at that point, I was like, and it's also going to like make this episode like 4 hours long. So I was just like, I didn't write a lot of notes as far as things going on with that, and I probably should have.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of typical strategy, and I do feel like, for all the strategy we got this episode, it's okay to not be super detailed. I did notice a couple interesting things. Ben said Michelle would be stupid to work with Natalie right now, which I found shocking because Michelle was bottom of the barrel and would have been voted out if not for immunity. And now you're saying that she's stupid to work with Natalie.
Which it's like, oh, well, since you guys were breaking down my door to do anything with me strategically, yes, I'm going to go ahead and vote out this gift horse. What?
Right. And then Sarah tells people that there's no way that Natalie will play an idol even if she has one, because Sarah has built such a great relationship with Natalie in the one day that they've spent together, that there's no way that she has an idol or else she would know about it. And that is such a huge yikes moment that I can only hope that it actually was said next round. And they just put it back the round before.
One can definitely pray, because they were definitely giving the edit that it was Sarah going home, like, by her own ego.
Yes.
They were setting it up. And for me, I was like, it almost makes sense to like get Sarah out in that moment. So it's almost just like, ooh, girl, don't do it. Molly, you in danger, girl.
Right.
Yeah.
So we head to tribal council. At this moment, I'm hoping Ben goes. I'm hoping he just like is too prideful to play his idol. But I'm sort of convinced at this point that it's probably going to be Sarah because of the edit that we've been shown so far in the episode.
Dude, the mallet they picked up to try and hit us over the head with like, Sarah doesn't know that Natalie has an idol, Sarah feels safe. And one of the classic tropes of Survivor is when you think you're safe, you go home.
Right.
Unless you're Sarah.
If not for this really remarkable moment from Sarah, I think this would have been a pretty unremarkable tribal council.
Agreed.
But this is what I had mentioned at the start of the episode. This is something I've been waiting to be addressed since season 7 of Survivor. And it is that Sarah brings up the fact that there is a gender bias that's evident within the game. If a man makes strong moves, he's revered. If a woman makes strong moves, she's, criticized and ridiculed, called names. And I think if Sarah makes final tribal council at this point, this moment is huge for her. And it's kind of been one of those things where Tony has been such a showboater in front of the jury. And we saw other players with impressive moments in front of the jury, like Sophie. But Tony's the only one that's still in the game at this point that has those. Sarah really just kind of throws the gauntlet down like, okay, you might have little like this, that's going on in front of the jury, but suck it, because I just explained why 33 seasons of Survivor, at least on the books, have not been giving women credit for strong moves. So I thought that was pretty cool.
There's that.
And I will drop my buff for this moment because I got blindsided by Jeff Probst admitting that he has gender bias or has shown it in the past and apologizing for it.
Did he apologize?
I think he said,
I've done it and I'm sorry that I've done it. I didn't hear that.
I don't think maybe he didn't apologize.
I could be wrong.
He addressed it and I think like danced around an apology, so I'll take that as an apology from Probst.
I mean, look, Jeff Probst owes absolutely nothing to anybody, so the fact that he acknowledged that it existed, I was actually impressed. And I generally don't have a lot of criticisms for Jeff Probst as a host, but one of the ones that I definitely have had on the books, probably not since season 7, but since easily before I'd say Cook Islands. I'm just like, I feel like there's so much admiration and there's so much time spent on men, and like the women, it's like, oh, you're cool.
Oh, well, my issue from season 7 is not with Jeff Probst showing bias, it's with
Uh,
players showing bias.
I think
That's
that's actually sorry.
another video for another time. But I don't like Lil as a player. I'm not a big fan of Lil. But I
Uh,
feel like players were especially harsh towards Lil because she's a mom and because she's a Boy Scout leader, and it wasn't okay for her to betray or lie or do those things. And I think that's such bullshit that
yeah,
it's okay for a father to do those things, but it's not okay for a mother or a scout leader. And as a Boy Scout, I was really fucking pissed when that happened. So
I'm telling you, man, they treated that freaking sash like it was a Bible. It's so fascinating to me, and this is why one of the rules of Survivor Big Brother: if you're a religious person, never swear on the Bible because someone will fall for it. And then if you make it to the end, every last person that you said, "Oh, I swear on the Bible" to, will not vote for you. That is
yeah,
just how it works. I agree though. I thinking back and while you were saying it, I don't think it was as early as Cook Islands. I didn't truly notice it. I noticed Jeff's kind of way of socially navigating players that he obviously liked more. He had a way of talking to them versus players I think he just didn't really uh, see as like the gold mine that they were. But I definitely started noticing, especially in Philippines, when Denise got like almost a minute at the finale or at the reunion, and Malcolm got like 7 minutes. That's
yeah.
like okay. We just broke all the records in the world for tribal council attendance, but that's less interesting than the teen heartthrob of the season. All right, that's fine.
Right. Sarah, how do you feel about Sarah demanding to be called Lucina? Because I'm not here for it, but it's
I'm
okay.
gonna be honest. I, it begs the question. I think the only player that Jeff Probst has ever called by their last name that were females,
Wentworth?
a female was Wentworth.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody else. I think maybe he might have called Wigglesworth by her
I
last
just
name.
because they're both named Kelly.
Exactly. And I think if anything, I'm like, did he call Wentworth as a respect thing? Because I think it during San Juan del Sur, he just called her Kelly.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, if we literally remove the only two examples where he only called them by their last names purely because it was a way to distinguish the two of them, I get it. I mean, I don't know if it was, part of me wonders if it was more of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of like, it's Lucina. I don't actually think that Sarah's like, no, I've made my stake and now I'm putting on my big girl pants and now I'm telling Jeff Probst he needs to call me Lucina. I don't think she cares that much. She might, but just as an observer, I'm like, I think Sarah is a little bit more emotionally mature than that, but what do I know?
Yeah. So we get to the vote. Natalie plays the hidden shoe immunity idol. And Tony steps forward and, Michelle had a moment before the vote where she had told Tony, Natalie says that she wants to vote you, just so you know. Smart move so that Tony flushes his idol. And then Ben, of course, stands up and he plays his idol too. Natalie gives a little eye roll. We pretty much know at this point the girls voted for Ben, and sure enough, we get 6 nullified votes here. So it's either Sarah or Denise, and Jeff, poses the scenario that they have to revote between the two girls. What do you think about Michelle and Natalie choosing to vote out Denise instead of Sarah?
I almost wonder. It pains me to think that Denise would kind of do what Ben effectively does the round after, but part of me just wonders if Denise was like, "I'm good."
I honestly, I considered that, but I think what really happened, I don't think that would have really had a bearing on the girls anyway.
See, and that strategically when they flipped, I was like, "But why?"
Well, here's the thing: was it a flip though? And I don't think it necessarily was because
You're right. You're right.
she did have a moment where she said, "No, I've got a bond with Natalie," and I don't think Natalie would do that. So if Denise was, who again, poor Denise, literally had no screen time this whole episode at all.
Talk about that. Sorry.
So like we don't know if the girls were trying to work with Denise or if Michelle and Denise had a thing at some point where they were just like, we're never going to work together. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
Maybe.
And if Natalie coming back to the game and not having a relationship with Denise was like, well, we have to try and flip Sarah. Sarah's the only person that will flip against Tony. She's the only one that, might consider it. So we have to save Sarah. Who knows? But, for me, I think it was probably more of a consideration of Denise is not going to work with us if we keep her.
No.
We're just dooming ourselves to be 5th and 4th. So
maybe, I guess, and again, you're probably 100% correct. I think that, if anything, probably just speaks to Sarah's ability in the game. Because to me, I'm just like, Sarah and Tony seem to be so unbelievably unshakable, and they both seem like threats at the end. And maybe the argument was, if Denise goes to the end, I wouldn't be shocked as a third bullet point that maybe they were just like, Tony's an arguable foe, or a formidable foe for the final 3 or to win the game, and so is Denise. Maybe you could be right that maybe they just were worried about working with her or didn't want to work with her, or maybe there was bad blood between Denise and Natalie because she had voted her out in the first tribal council. Who knows? But yeah, I almost wonder if maybe the fear was that Denise was going to be a threat for jury votes.
Maybe, but we'll never know because we don't get a single confessional about it anyway.
We don't get that. And that's probably the thing I'm the saltiest about this entire finale.
Yeah.
And literally between the episode we filmed last week and tonight, I literally watched an interview. It had like eight of the winners come back for an interview with Jeff Probst and everything like that. And he was like, the subject came up of like, when people get to be seen in episodes. And Jeff responds to that, and he's like, we have so many different stories to tell, and sometimes you'll do something great, you'll have a great moment with someone, but we try and give so much time to the person that goes home, and we kind of build the story backwards. And I'm sitting there watching him say this, and I'm like, EK, because I know that's not true. I think Jeff Probst knows that's not true, because we saw nothing of when Sophie left, like not a GD thing. I don't even think she got a confessional in her episode, and if she did, it might have been one. And I don't think Denise got a confessional this episode.
No.
I don't think she did. And we didn't see her scrambling or talking to everyone, and maybe she didn't, perhaps. But I think, I can't remember, when she talked about the endure and let go, was that one of the tribal councils from the previous episode, or was that last night?
It was last episode.
Okay, so did she even get a question at tribal council this week?
Maybe. Honestly, the tribals all sort of blended in for me, so she might have gotten one, but it probably would have been a quick little, so Denise, how do you feel about the challenge today, or something like that?
Denise probably just like, I have a job to get back to when I leave the show, so I'm not super worried about this. Tyson's like, I played 3 times, and that's how I pay my mortgage. And Denise is like, that's cute, get a job.
So we end up heading back after tribal, and Tony just immediately starts rubbing it into Ben and Sarah. You guys never compromise. I told you. You guys never. I was like, what game are you playing that they never compromise? Because like, I recall you blindsiding Sophie and telling Sarah to calm the fuck down. And from my understanding, Sarah calmed the fuck down, and y'all have still been working together. To me, that's a compromise. To me, that's saying, okay, I won't blow up your spot, even though you just fucked me over a smidge.
Yeah, there's a bit of a bygones being bygones to that capacity for sure.
Yeah. How about with Ben wanting Jeremy gone so much and then not voting Jeremy out 2 rounds in a row? I feel like that was a compromise. I'm just like, what is this? You guys never compromise. I'm like, this is a pile of manure.
That was one of those moments where I'm just like, no double standards in Survivor.
Ever. Tony starts going on about this. I'm going to go on a midnight run for the idol. And you cannot tell me that this midnight idol run is not assisted by production. Because how in the shit does nobody notice that there's random fires going on across the island? Like, what? No one is like, oh my god, Tony's out at midnight looking for idols. I'm sorry. Absolute BS.
I was genuinely sitting there. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to start saying synonyms of bullshit, so you're fine.
synonyms for that. So that'd be like
Malarkey,
Toro Kaka. I was in my chair just going, if he finds this idol, I am going to lose my ever-loving mind. Like, I was white-knuckling my couch like I was never going to be able to walk again because I was like, he cannot find this idol. Like, he just cannot. And yeah, so for me, part of me was just when he didn't find it, I was almost like, oh, gee. When he was talking like, oh, Natalie Michelle just went straight to bed after tribal council. And I was like, if he finds the idol, he's a genius. If he doesn't find the idol, it's like, oh, gee, maybe they went straight to bed because they're not dumb enough to look for an idol in the dark.
Well, Natalie does end up finding the idol. Thank goodness. And right after this moment, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. Natalie finds the idol. Natalie needs to win immunity too. Play the idol on Michelle. Get another big move under your belt. This is all great. And we go to the challenge, and sure enough, Tony wins the throw the thing on a thing challenge. This moment for me is like, there is no way Tony loses. Like every time we get to one step, it's like, oh my God, Tony actually isn't safe this time. Oh wait, just kidding. He has an idol. Oh wait, just kidding. He wins immunity.
I'm having flashbacks to my Callaway, but in Tony's defense, he actually had a round where
he played well.
He had like 3 rounds because I think Michelle won immunity twice. I think Nick won immunity once. So not quite my Callaway, but I was like, this man just cannot be taken out. This is not possible.
So, at this point, it's like, oh my God, please let the girls target Ben. Please let the idol be played properly, because if Ben goes to fire, he's going to win fire. So, like, there's a twofold worry here, right? Like, you can use Ben to take out anybody in the fire-making challenge, and he'll probably win it. But the problem is, if you don't win immunity, and you're the person going against Ben in the fire-making challenge, you just gave yourself 4th place.
There it is.
So, that's a tough, decision to make. So, Natalie knows that she has to flip Sarah to pull this vote off, because, yes, she has an idol, but the idol might not be played properly, and it's every round going forward. Yes, you might be able to play an idol correctly and get a certain outcome, but you still need numbers going forward. Even in top 4, you have to think of who might actually just pull you to the end instead of putting you in fire making. So it's smart. But we see the revenge of the Spy Nest, and I literally I want to be like Amazon and chop all the trees down. With the Spy Nest again. Like, I'm just
how you feel.
I'm over it. Like, the Spy Nest is stupid to me. You can't tell me that people don't notice a camera pointing up at a fucking tree every time they go to talk at the well.
I've got there's 2 sides of the coin for me. There's one side of the coin where I think it's hilarious. Like, I genuinely am just like, I just think you have to be so bored out there, because it's like you could just hang out near the water well and just not be seen and get the exact same information. And part of me also thinks this. I agree with you. I'm like, this is absolutely stupid. I literally just think someone probably just said, hey, Tony, so you had your spy shack and then you had your spy bunker. What are you going to do this season? And he was like, well, what are my options? I'll go in a tree. It seems really forced, and I don't necessarily feel, if he did, the fact that he roped in Sarah to do it, I'm like, I guess I almost am like, the closest I can come up with is Sarah probably was like, you're being crazy and paranoid and I'm over it. So why don't you jump in a tree and you can listen to everything I'm saying to everybody, and I'm not having side conversations without you, or that I'm not trying to betray you. I felt like just watching it, I'm like, I think he could probably accomplish a lot of what he's doing without having to potentially break his neck by climbing into a tree. So it seems a little bit forced. It seems a little bit stupid. I still find it mildly amusing. But yeah, if anyone brings it up, like, Tony's such a great game player because of the Spy Nest, I'm going to look at them and go, you're clearly high.
I do, like, this moment kind of made me think, like, is Sarah going to potentially, like, make Final Tribal and be like, Tony's going to talk about a spy nest, and Sarah's going to be like, I'm the person that let the spy nest happen because I was always the one having those conversations. People trusted me to talk to them so that Tony could eavesdrop. Like, that's my good social game. That has nothing to do with Tony. Tony's being a psychopath in the tree.
Tony
I'm
wanted,
the conversations.
yeah, like Tony wanted to climb trees and be Tony, and I wanted to actually communicate with you guys. So,
Right.
yep.
So at the well, Sarah notices Natalie's idol is in her buff. I don't understand why she would do that, but it adds this layer now of the Alliance of Three knows there is an idol on the other side. Now it's a conundrum of who do they play it on, and Natalie and Michelle go back and forth. The Alliance of Three goes back and forth, and we have one of the weirdest moments I would never have predicted in Survivor. Ben volunteers to have Sarah vote him out so that she has a resume builder to beat Tony. What?
When he said it, I was like, what? What? And I was like, no, I want Ben to be bested out of this game, or I want him to go to the final three and lose. Like, no, you don't get to fall on the sword, you jerk. I was not thrilled with that. But at the same time, Ben has not done a full 180 for me this season because I still carry all the opinions I had about his first season. But I'm like, okay, Ben's kind of great.
I was obviously at the suggestion of it, I was happy because I want an all-female final three at this point, and the only way it's happening is if Ben and then Tony goes and Tony has immunity. So, but
maybe a female winner if it's a freaking all-female final three. That seems to be the only way it's ever going to happen again.
Only way it'll happen. So at that prospect, I'm kind of excited, but I'm really just like caught off guard because this is something we don't really see often in Survivor in this day and age, especially from like all winners. Like people were kind of riding on Denise for being like, I'm good, I'm done. But like she wasn't like vote me the fuck out. She was like, being me, I'm okay. I'm not pissed. And Ben is like, no, you have to vote me out to get a resume point on your thing. It's actually like for Sarah, very smart because we've seen Tony get credit at these tribal councils for these moves, and Sarah knows that she needs to make a move without Tony. Now, is it smart for Sarah to want to make this move without Tony at the top 5? Probably could have been done sooner. Probably a little late for this,
Yes, I agree. I think the trick for me in that is it's like, well, you need to build your resume and stuff like that. So the thing I wanted to know, just watching it, is I was like, so was Ben gonna go to not Edge of Extinction because that's done? Was he gonna go to Ponderosa and then just be like, I can't believe Sarah betrayed me, or was he gonna play up that Sarah had blindsided him? Because
I thought about that too. Because
for her to get credit. Like, you don't get credit for taking out Ben if Ben just goes immediately to the jury and basically says, oh yeah, I told her she can vote me out. There's no credit there.
Well, and tribal council is fairly unremarkable. There's an incorrect idol play, and we do see Ben go 3-2 over Michelle, but Ben leaving, Tony audibly is like, what? And turns and looks. Like in front of the jury, yeah, Tony was blindsided, but is Ben gonna play into that and be like, oh yeah, Sarah really got me? I have no idea.
You're making me laugh way too much tonight. This is fantastic.
So it was like, it's an interesting move. Does it carry a lot of weight if Tony makes the final 3? I don't know, but I did kind of have a moment where Ben and Ben hasn't bothered me that much this season for the most part, but it was sort of like a really cool human moment for Ben, especially I think coming off of the speech that Sarah gave at the top 6 tribal council about women not being respected for their moves. I was like, you know what, like this guy's okay. Like that, I think Ben realized there's no way he's gonna win. I think probably one of the biggest things we didn't see, and I wish we had seen, was, yes, if Ben votes with Sarah and Tony to take out one of the girls and they're correct, and Ben makes final 4, there's a strong chance that he's going to have to take out one of his friends in fire making. And I think we didn't see Ben giving confessionals about guilt over having to write down Denise's name, because he mentioned it in the episode that he doesn't want to put Denise's name down because he really cares about her as a person. And then at the vote, he has to, because it's either Denise or Sarah.
Exactly.
And we didn't see any follow-up to that, but I think that probably was weighing on him really heavily, because we saw him very emotional when he's telling Sarah about voting him out. So
yeah, no, it was a lot to watch, but I think I found his trajectory and a lot of his confessionals to be very interesting, and it seemed like his arc was I'm more about relationships this season. But he's the only person that we know of in the entire cast who legitimately would refuse to have conversations with people.
right.
Almost just like, what? But I don't know. I think if of all the things, like, both nice and maybe not so nice, I'm trying this thing where I'm not so overly critical of players that I don't like as much as others, and I appreciate the eyebrow raise because I'm only human. That being said, I appreciated Ben more this time around than his last time by far.
Right.
So who's Ben, which is interesting and crazy, and who knows if Sarah voting him out would have made a difference for her had she made it to the end. Who knows? But yeah, we've got our final four.
We have our final four. We head into the challenge pretty much right away. It's all about the balls. We've seen this one a couple of times in the past. I think Jeff said this is the 4th time it's been done, and the 3 times it was done before, every time the winner of the challenge goes on to win the season. Interesting little tidbit.
I found it fascinating.
Yeah. Who are you rooting for at this point to win this challenge?
At this point, any challenge, who do I want to see win? It's all on Natalie at this point. If not Natalie, even Sarah.
Okay. See, I want Natalie to make the finals, but in this challenge, I'm rooting for Michelle. And
really?
the reason why is because, first off, I think, and I didn't mention it in my notes before, but I think Michelle and Natalie getting Tony to flush his idol was like a super strong gameplay moment that does not come up at Final Tribal. And I hate the format of Final Tribal, so I wish that it had time to come up at Final Tribal, because I think they pulled off something that nobody for 8 rounds before them or whatever could do with Tony's idol, and that was flush it. And they flushed the final 6. Like, that's impressive to me.
Yeah.
The round before he has to play it. So I want Michelle to win the challenge so that she takes Natalie to the end and puts Sarah in fire making against Tony, because nobody can look at Natalie and go, why didn't you volunteer for fire making? Well, I didn't win the challenge and Michelle took me, so what do you want me to do?
That's fair. I did not look at it from that perspective, but yeah, I respect that. I think it's really funny because when you watch the challenge, I always watch, like, where when they put the balls into that contraption, I always look at how close they are. And it happened about 4 times where I was like, oh, Natalie's going to be the first to drop, because she had 2 balls, and I swear to God.
She kept putting them like boom, boom, and I was like, homegirl is toast.
I'm like, so the 2 sides just must not be identical.
Yeah, I think what we don't see is that I think the track on the right takes a little bit longer than the track on the left.
And that's what I was looking for when I was actually watching them do the challenge. I was trying to see, like, if they were the same or how off they might have been from each other. Because the number of times she had balls so next to each other, I was like, she has to go out next. And then Tony dropped. Well, Natalie's got to be next. Then Sarah drops. And I'm just like, oh my God, are Sarah and Tony going to make fire against each other? And I was like, well, obviously Michelle's going to win this, because every time we see Natalie's cage, those balls are like this far away from each other.
Right.
So when she pulled it out, I was just like, holy crap. Natalie got voted off on day 2, spent like 30 plus days on the edge, came back, and is now in the finals. Win, first place, second place, or third place. That is badass.
That is as much of leaving your mark as being the Queen Slayer.
That's
So,
like, right? I'm like, that's Survivor legendary status. Whether you like Edge of Extinction or not, that's legendary.
yes.
So I think
Super
combined, I think if anyone else had done it, maybe not so much. But the fact that she got all those damn coins, girl got it. I was a man.
right. So Natalie does win, and there's a bit of a debate. You know, is Sarah going to make fire against Tony? Is Michelle going to make fire against Tony? Tony's making fire. Thank God someone is making Tony make fire. We see a lot in this edit, though, of like Tony being like, oh, I guess I need to work harder on making fire. Oh, I don't know how to make fire. And it's like, okay, edit, like, come on. We're
Please.
not this dumb. He's literally sitting there while Michelle is making fire and watching her, and sitting there while Sarah's making fire and watching her, and he's not making fire. I'm like, you want to tell me that the guy who refuses to go to sleep to look for idols in the dark doesn't know how to make a fire? Okay.
All right.
Not buying
They
it.
do show like Sarah and Tony next to each other, and Tony's like giving Sarah pointers. What's funny is I saw in a post-season interview, Sarah was like, "Oh, Tony and I were helping each other. Like I gave him tips, which obviously now seems really dumb that or feels really dumb that I did that." And I was like, "Yep, but CBS is never going to show us or show you helping Tony. We're only going to see him helping you."
Right. I mean, if it were me and if I ever apply for Survivor and if I ever get on it, if someone wants to watch this video and find out my strategy, go for it. I'm all spent. If I know I'm going to play Survivor, I'm going to spend 7 months leading up to Survivor making fire. I don't give a shit and hopefully the fire making twist is not part of the season because it's a stupid twist.
I
But
hate
if it is, and if I get in a tie vote and I got to make fire or something, I'm going to act like I have no idea what I'm doing, but deep down I know how to make freaking fire, and I'm going to be fine. Like, I think that's clearly what Tony's doing. He's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Or the edit is like, oh, Tony doesn't know what he's doing.
We've
Uh,
arrived at Kermit the Frog playing Tony, and I am obsessed. I am obsessed.
so so Natalie takes Michelle. I'm happy. I don't care if anybody else is happy. I'm happy. 2 girls in the finale. I have a shot at a all-female final 3. We're
Yeah.
close. This fire making challenge starts off, and Tony has the first flame. But then it's kind of neck and neck, and then Sarah pulls ahead. She's got flames licking her rope, but it's all husk, and we see Sarah just literally grab like how long my hair used to be, that amount into her fire. Like, let me just throw 8 pounds of husk on this fire. That'll help, and it smothers it, and husk isn't gonna burn high enough. So Tony, meanwhile, has been nursing his tiny flame, getting all the sticks set up, and it ends up kind of being close, but like Sarah's fire is sort of like over here and Tony's is like everywhere. Tony wins, of course.
And it was in that moment, it was just like, Tony's won the game.
It was in that moment that we realized what we've known for at least 9 episodes.
Right? Since at least like the final 10, it's just like, why? Why?
Right.
Like Lisa winning the final 3 HOH in season 3 of Big Brother. For you infants that are watching this season 3 was a great season until final 3. It was so heartbreaking because I'm just like, I don't see any scenario where Natalie pulls through, or I was like Natalie or Michelle,
Not agree.
based on what we're seeing, and I'm just like, I wanted a female winner, and I think my only hesitation with that was Michelle, just because we'll get into that later. So Tony wins the challenge. I gotta be honest, watching Sarah and Tony in that moment was actually pretty great after Sarah had lost the challenge. Because she's heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she genuinely was happy for Tony. And I gotta be honest, I'd have to really care about somebody to lose the fire making challenge and not just be like, snuff the torch, get me out, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that they're close. We know that they've had this journey. It's a very fitting end for them on Survivor. You know, I think the only thing that might have been more fitting is both being in final 2 or final 3 rather. But you know, for them to come head to head after, you know, Tony got Sarah her first season, Sarah beat Tony her second season, and then they worked together this season. it's the right end of the storyline, and I think going out this way for Sarah it's a bummer because I think she was really our only real hope at beating Tony in the game in some ways.
Yeah.
But I think she had a really powerful episode. Yes, she had moments where it seemed like she lacked kind of a little bit of humility, and hubris kind of got the best of her. But she had some, for me, like powerful moments that need to be showcased on Survivor, and I'm glad that they were. And most of them really came through on this episode, which is unfortunate because she's had shining moments throughout the season, but it kind of seemed like she wasn't really allowed to explain what they were about until right now, which is, I mean, at least we got it at some point. So.
Exactly. I agree.
We head into Final Tribal. I mean, we have the whole last day shenanigans. I don't think there's anything really remarkable here. It's same old,
If
same
you
old.
want to talk about Survivor Breakfast, fine. I honestly think I was multitasking because I always find the final day breakfast. I'm glad they do it for the finalists. It's not necessarily something where if they omitted it in a future season, I'd be like, hey,
I'd much rather get a torch walk than a breakfast scene, honestly.
can we talk about rites of passage?
Yeah.
I literally saw someone make a post in a Facebook group just being like, you know what I don't miss and hope they never bring back? And they called it the torch walk as well, I think. And I was just like, yes, rites of passage. The comment after comment after comment after comment basically being like, the torch walk is stupid. I always hated it. I never paid attention to it. I thought it was such a waste of time. I'd always leave the room, or that's when I take an emergency bathroom break. I always loved.
That was always the highlight of the finale for me.
I always loved it. It was one of my favorite parts of every season.
My favorite torch walk moment ever, as a quick aside, was Katie and Palau, and I can't remember whose it was. I think it was like Janu's or something. And like they were on the boat, like they were coming up to like all the torches or something and like putting them down in the water. And I think she just like threw it in the water. It was so funny. Maybe it was Karen. Maybe she was like, fuck you, Karen. I don't
know. Yeah. Katie and Karen. Katie did not like Karen. I think
it was like, oh.
My personal favorite will always be Kelly Goldsmith. What was it? Because I think at one point I watched it so much I had it memorized. And I think we talked about this once, where it was literally like, so after the Kelly voted off debacle, which it was, because I didn't vote for stupid Lex, and I was just like, I love this girl. I'm so mad she got voted off, and she did. And debacle since that day has been in my top 5 favorite words.
Love debacle. Love it.
I had no idea what it was. I had to look it up.
So speaking of moments that are probably more entertaining than this Final Tribal Council, I'm gonna say it again. I said it earlier. I hate this format of Final Tribal. I really do. I think first off, I don't think Jeff has the right definition of outwit, outplay, outlast. I really don't. I don't think his definitions make sense. But beyond that, like we don't see players really given a chance to diminish other players' games. And like I miss that in a Final Tribal because like Michelle and Natalie, who may have had moments where they really took away from Tony's power in the game from Final 6 onward, which they did, they didn't have a chance to explain that at all. Because everyone was like, what was the moment where you worked the hardest in the game to live? And so they have to answer the question. But if someone doesn't ask the question,
yeah,
you can't be like, Tony had no power from 6 onward. I'm sorry. Like, you might think it's stupid of me to get voted out first round, but like, I made the best out of that situation where there were other alliances that already existed that I couldn't do anything about. Came back into the game. From 6 onward, I busted my ass and I took away the power from the guy that had the power. Yeah. So I played a better endgame than him. And Michelle could just be like, I didn't have power, but with one person coming back, I found a way to destroy this alliance of 4. Yeah. And I ended up being the person who was in the most power at the end of the game. But they don't say that.
I wonder if what you're talking about just is on the cutting room floor. Because the thing that I found really interesting going to that Final Tribal Council, because it never got brought up, and I'm like, I think Michelle is a smart person. And I think it'd be impossible for her to not be like, so here's the trick. This is Tony's 3rd time playing. So he went out there, did what he did in his first season, won it. I did the exact same thing. Tony went out in a returning season or in Game Changers, like tried a strategy that obviously blew up in his face, and now he adjusted from that second experience to play this time. I didn't get a second time. This is my second time, and I'm here. Natalie, as amazing as she is, spent over 30 days of the game not in the game. So even if I was on the bottom, like I think to me that was a great arguing point for Michelle.
Yeah.
If you played the game 3 times, that's why if Boston Rob had won, I'd be like, oh, Boston Rob won his 5th time playing. I don't care. But with Michelle, that was actually a fairly good arguing point. And I don't understand when people are like, you know, I was constantly on the bottom. I'm always the jerk in my chair going, who put you on the bottom?
Right. Well, for me, if I were in that position, I would just kind of be like, you know, I was on the bottom and I was trying to make moves, but like you guys that are sitting over there, you were the ones that were preventing me from being able to make moves. And I'm still here. So like you guys handed him those moves. I've tried to fight against it. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like, you guys want to vote for him because he's the one that undid you, then fine, that makes sense. That being said, I was here the whole time wanting to work with you guys. You chose not to work with me.
right.
And it's not that I was untrustworthy, because look what I did for Jeremy. I was willing to give him an advantage that I spent all of my tokens on. Like, that's kind of loyalty I would have shown many of you. You chose not to put that trust in me.
Right.
But yeah, every single time it's like I was constantly on the bottom. I'm like, that's the last thing I would ever say about my game. Pure
Right.
1, because they already know. And 2, because just because you stick around, for me, I'm always that person where it's like, in a game where it's like, well, we can vote out Sophie, we can vote out Michelle. Who's the powerhouse of the two? Who's the threat of the two? By Sophie. We can vote out Kim, or we can vote out Michelle. It's like, I never understand that mindset. And maybe it's just because it sounds good. It's like, I fought, I endured. And I'm just like, no, literally, of the 4 people that you were tight with, you were literally the least threatening. Obviously, you're there, and congrats, but that's because we knew that if we took you out instead of your allies, they would have had a better shot of doing something that would have changed the course of the game and gotten themselves out of the bottom. Michelle did not get herself out of the bottom, which is why I'm like, no, this is fitting.
Yeah. Poor Sophie, by the way, apparently was sick and couldn't attend Tribal like the round before. And then at Final Tribal looked so miserable.
She looked so unhappy.
I was like, do you need me to call somebody for you? Because like you shouldn't be forced to be here right now. I'm sure they can just show you the footage and you can make a decision, honey.
Yeah, that was really strange when she wasn't included in that tribal, because I don't think that's ever happened. Has it?
I think there's been moments. I think there's one other time where they didn't have a juror present, but I can't remember. I think it's happened.
I know Bruce was evacuated from, or medevaced from the game, and maybe he wasn't there by the time of the next tribal council, maybe? But when I was thinking about it, I was like, I can't think of a specific case where a jury member did not attend tribal council.
My gut goes to Joe from Co-Wrong, but I could be wrong there too. I can't remember.
So, oh, right, maybe.
Older
Like
guy.
maybe someone was medevaced, and by what would have been their first tribal council, they weren't cleared yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that happened, but I found it fascinating.
Yeah. There were a couple moments that stuck out to me, but it really wasn't any. I mean, it was again like it was a foregone conclusion, but I did not like how Rob tried to kind of like shame Natalie a couple times for not putting herself in fire making, and to take Tony out, which why would you? I don't see it. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that's that big of a move for Underwood, and everyone praises it. And I'm like, it's kind of stupid because if you lose, you just lost the game.
Right.
And like, it can be a fluke. Like, I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure like the person who gets red in those fire making challenges almost always wins. And I could be wrong there, but I feel like it's pretty common. But anyway.
I don't know how they figure out the color situation. Like, do y'all flip a coin? Does Jeff just say, player who I like, or the man usually in the situation, you take this color, and then player,
Right.
you take the second color?
Anything, your knife could break, the wind could be blowing wrong. Like you don't I'm sorry, you don't risk it. I don't think it's smart.
Yeah,
And then
I think I agree with you.
Rob is like, well, Natalie, there were times where you found advantages and then you were just off on your own on the edge of extinction. And thank God Parvati comes in and she's like, Natalie, that's what I like about you because you were always yourself and you didn't try to hide who you were. And Natalie is like, I know that I can have an abrasive personality and I needed moments where I could get some clarity for myself in the game. And obviously it worked because I am here. And so the moments I took to myself were worth it. So
I'm so sorry while I was starving on the daily for over 3 weeks, you felt excluded from what I was doing because everything's about you, Boston Rob. What?
right.
I'm that person. This is why I'm like, ooh, obviously if I ever went on Survivor, I would want to be on it and I'd want to win. But sometimes I listen to these jurors and I'm like, please never put me in that situation, especially if I've been starving for time. Because I'm gonna look at some of these jurors and go, you're joking, right? But I also know I would be that juror who would try and turn any situation about a conversation about gameplay and try and turn it to myself. A la Jeremy. When he did it, I was like, Jeremy, it's not about you. And then immediately I was like, Alex, you do the same thing.
Were there any other moments at Final Tribal Council that stuck out to you?
I know there will be as soon as we stop recording. It just seemed like from the jump it was going to be a landslide for Tony. I liked that Natalie went in just like, let's go, let's get this. And there were a couple times where I wanted to be like, breathe. But at the same time, I know that Natalie went in like with all the energy in the world because it's what she suffered on Edge of Extinction for so long to do, was to get to the end and to try and win. And I think she made a great go of it. I think I agree with you. The whole, oh, hey, you spent all that time on Edge of Extinction but you didn't make fire. So that's gonna be, I'm like, if anything, just say like Natalie played a great game. Tony killed it, and Tony had to kill it while in the game, and he never got a vote the entire time. Right. And I'm like, do that. But like, don't have like as you're casting your vote, the reason why is because Natalie didn't make fire. If anything, I was like, I've put down a lot of my malice that I've held for a lot of players just because it's stupid to just like anyone over a television show that, you know, like a tenth of everything that goes on, if that. But even still, in that moment, I was just like, get over yourself, Rob. I'm
done. So Tony is our winner, 13, I believe, to 4-0. I know you're not a huge Michelle fan, but are you a little shocked that she got 0 votes?
I don't know if shocked is the word. My heart went out to her as they were reading the vote. It was Natalie, Tony, Natalie, Tony, Natalie. And I was like, eventually someone's going to get 2 votes in a row. And traditionally, I could be wrong on this, I feel like unless someone wins unanimously, I feel as though, unless someone wins unanimously or if the other player only gets 1 vote, I feel like whoever, if it's like one person got 2 votes, whoever gets the first vote when it's read usually loses.
Yeah.
I feel like that's usually the case. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and double check. So Natalie's name popped up. I was like, it's going to go Natalie and Tony, until either one of them, or until Tony gets 2 in a row, and then he's going to win. There was a part of me that was like, I wasn't surprised that Michelle lost, but I did find myself being a little bit like, girl deserved at least 1 vote.
I was kind of like, if I were Michelle, after that finale, I would have like drop kicked Nick in the face because like he was the person that ruined their potential to turn the game back around and take out people like Tony and Sarah and Ben. And I don't know, that as like not a huge Michelle fan, but like someone who recognizes like she made it to the end of the game kind of playing the same way as her first season. Like that is sort of impressive. Everybody knows your strategy and they still let you do it. Like that carries some merit.
Yep.
I was like, really? Like, first off, Wendell, who like was a detriment to your game, didn't vote for you, but like, and I get why people would vote for Tony. Again, the guy got to the end with no votes against him.
In an
That's
all-winner season.
so impressive.
It is
Um,
very impressive.
you know, take away the fact that, yeah, there were like 7 rounds where he was like immune or had an idol or whatever, which is fine, but like that's still impressive. Uh, but I would be a little PO'd if like the people who tanked my game in the rounds where I was really trying to play,
Yeah.
like, didn't vote for me at the end. I'd be like, really, guys? Like, you're the reason why I got to the end without having a move under my belt because you wouldn't let me make a move.
Like all the moves I wanted to make. And someone could argue it's like, well, if she had the savvy to make her goals the goals of other players, like that's the argument. And I think that's ultimately why Tony won, was because he had the ability to say, like, yes, I'm a threat to win this game. Let me minimize my threat and convince people to go the way I want them to go. And Tony did that the best, and as amazing, as much as I don't like Edge of Extinction, and I still would have loved Natalie to win, which is weird for me to say. That being said, Natalie did not do what Tony did. And I think, if anything, I could have liked a Tony win better if the distribution of the edit had been anywhere closer to being balanced than it was.
Yeah.
Around after the episode Sophie left, it was legitimately Tony's game to lose.
Yeah.
Like that was it. And so much of the edit after that, like when they almost eliminated them. They completely eliminated Denise. And I'm just like, yeah, had there been not so much time on Tony and Sarah and some time to kind of give a vibe that everybody had a shot. But I think that's like a Survivor, like in general, constructive criticism as opposed to just the season. Like
I mean, ultimately though, like that's my issue with the season, and that's why I'm not like, oh my god, it's the greatest season ever. And it's just because of like inconsistent edit. Like I don't want to say unfair because like it's a story. They can tell it however they want. But like the edit was so hodgepodge at some points, and then it was so all in on some people, like Adam so much for the first half of the season for no reason, and then so much of Tony in the second half that like when we did get brilliant moments from people like Yul, like they didn't have a payoff. It was just like, we're going to throw this in here for no reason. And like same with Sophie, like, and then we don't even get a goodbye from her in her episode. Like it's all, there were just moments that I was like, am I imagining what I'm being shown, or am I just being shown like the wrong things? And so I had to like stop myself and go back and be like, no, like that's being shown. There's no reason for it. So yeah. I think, and so like that's my grief with the season, not necessarily, the way it turned out, because Tony earned the win and I can respect that. Do I think there were things that maybe like helped him a little bit? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Chaos Cast talking about his arm being limp in a challenge where your arm had to be straight. Like maybe she had some merit there. But, it is what it is. I think he's a good winner regardless. I don't think he's the greatest player of all time. Sorry. I think this win could be one of the greatest wins of all time, based simply on, you get to the end, you win with no votes against you. It is impressive. Yeah. And with the caliber of players in this season, it makes it more impressive. So, yeah. Like, you already don't have to ask me if I would outrank him over like Cochran. Yeah, absolutely. So,
I was like, I won't go there because I'm trying to be nice. No, I agree with you. I think for them to say, oh, is the winner, it's funny because in the finale in his garage, Jeff's like, will it make them the greatest player of all time? And I'm like, oh, what's funny is I could be wrong. I want to say in the first episode, he was like, who will win and become the greatest Survivor player of all time? And I'm like, first of all, that's so unbelievably subjective. I don't understand why we're even talking about it. Second of all, how could you say that if someone plays 4 times and then wins twice, are they the greatest? Okay. And then also, it's like you have to consider like the 18 winners. Oh, I think it's 18 that weren't even included in the season.
Right.
So if I were Seth Guitari or Brian Heidick, and I was like, oh, they're the greatest allegedly, but I'm just like, I won. I only played once. I haven't been brought back again. So I'm really not a contestant for the crown because I didn't even get to play. So I don't know. That whole greatest of all time thing, I was like, that's nonsense.
Not to like jump on a soapbox here or anything too, but like is the greatest player of all time necessarily somebody who's won a season? Like, can you argue that Surrey Fields, who would have won Micronesia but got screwed over by a twist, and probably would have won Game Changers but got screwed over by twists? Like,
Uh, no, and I don't think you're the greatest player just because you win.
right. So, like, that's, I mean, yes, it's obviously like a mark against somebody if they're a great player but they haven't won a game. But, like, how much of that is their gameplay that's the detractor? You know, to get, obviously, like, she got idled out in Heroes versus Villains. We understand that. But, like, to get, what, 4th, 3rd, and 6th by default in another season, like, that's very impressive.
That's a very impressive resume. So yeah, I wouldn't even be like a who's the greatest player, because I'm just like, well, there's so many things to define what makes a player great, and
Right.
a way to like quantify that and like come up with like factual data to support the notion. Because sometimes some people would say, well, it has to do with challenges, and I'm like, no, because you can win every challenge in the world and still be a terrible player.
Right. Yeah, you really have to take into account too, like, luck. Luck is such a part of Survivor. So, like, if you get a bad tribe swap, like Yule could have been the greatest Survivor player of all time. We don't know. He got like 14th place in this season because of a shitty tribe swap. Like, it
Yeah,
is.
he got the tribe swap that he had the numbers in that one, but I see what you're saying though.
I don't. I'm gonna argue it. Michelle, Nick, and Wendell had a pregame alliance. Michelle even kind of mentioned it at Final Tribal Council that she had an alliance with Wendell and Nick, like early, like all game long, is what she said.
I would not be shocked. And the thing that I saw in a video, I think it was today because the finale was yesterday. Man, I'm tired. Sarah even mentioned like, yeah, after the first time we played, like we butted heads in this, and then Tony and I became really good friends. And I'm just that for me is when I'm just like all the All-Star seasons, they're great, they're entertaining because you want to see people like want to make a stand,
Right.
like make big moves, and they're much more eager and willing to do things that will stand out. So very rarely is an All-Star season boring. That being said, you also have to contend with the fact that sometimes people go back in, and it's like if I'm connected with two people outside or two people within the Survivor community, and another player's connected with 17 people in the Survivor community, or everybody in the Survivor community, obviously a stretch. Right? I said 17 in the community, I meant 17 in the cast. It's like
Right.
no more people in the game. That's already an advantage. And some people want to argue like, well, it could be a disadvantage if everyone knows like you're close to so many people. And I'm like, no,
Well,
I'm
that's why I don't hold it against Natalie that she was voted out first, because, like, what if everybody on that tribe was already like, well, this is my alliance of 7 and this is what I'm sticking with, and we were all good friends and we all hung out after our seasons, blah blah blah, and Natalie was not one of those people. Like, what do you do?
exactly. And I think that's possibly where that's a great point. That's possibly where I have more forgiveness for Edge of Extinction, just because, yeah, when you play a certain
If for me, what I was going to say is, if there's going to be a season where Edge of Extinction makes sense, it's going to be a season where people all know each other, or some people know each other.
product. No, I agree.
It
Um,
doesn't work if Survivor's a game of random strangers, because, yeah, then it is your fault if you go home, or maybe not necessarily your fault, but yeah, you could have done something. There's something that could have been done. Whereas with pre-existing conditions in the game like this, maybe sometimes there are just times where you couldn't have done anything.
exactly. No, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Um,
That was quite the soapbox moment for both of them.
Yeah, no, I like the soapbox. God knows I get on mine quite a bit. So yeah, overall, entertaining season. Not a bad winner, not the winner I was hoping for. Not the second winner I was hoping for, but I think they set out to tell a story, and while there were parts of the story we got a lot of detail on, arguably too much, and parts of the story we would have liked to see more. I'm not upset at the finish.
Yeah, God help our souls for the next few months. All people rant about how Tony is the greatest of all time and blah 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 blah, because it's going to be a while till we get another Survivor winner. But it's not the worst case scenario. Like, it wasn't Adam. So
Ugh. I was gonna say I'm. It's
I'm
fast.
not, I'm not trying to make you say mean things, by the way. I promise.
I was gonna say my reactions I think are mean enough. That being said, I find it so funny that Adam, who was like the star of the confessionals, uh, really just didn't. We didn't see much of him in the final episode. I think he might have gotten one of the recording. They might have showed him in that. Um,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
everybody in that. Yeah.
I think if anything, in a lot of ways, I think this season was a love letter to the players. But in a lot of ways, I felt the season was a love letter to the fans as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I wonder if maybe the reason why they gave Adam such a heavy edit early season is because he was super popular after his season, and I think a lot of that has to do with his journey, like his mom and stuff like that. Like fans really loved Adam. But then I think after he was out, the editors were like, "Oh yeah, we might have fucked up with that one. Let's just act like he doesn't exist now."
Yeah, and I will always say his story with his mom is one of the most heartbreaking things ever, and I think the way that he's channeled a lot of that into work that he does, I think post he was getting a lot of flack from this season, and I wasn't posting. I doubt he watched this, so I doubt anything I said personally affected him. And
If
even
he did, he's one of our 6 views.
right, wouldn't that be ironic? That being said, I definitely appreciate the fact that he's got a great attitude on that. That being said, I don't think a situation with his mom has much to do with my criticisms of his game, which is why.
Oh no. I just think it's part of why he's so popular.
Oh, what? Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. But and that's really it. And I'm gonna have to edit that out because why am I talking about this? It was a good season. I was going out being nice, Ryan. Just opening Pandora's box of sass. You were the worst. No, it was. I think it was a great season. Yeah, I think the only thing. Did you have anything else to say about like the game slash season?
No, I think that's really all. I mean, maybe at some point we'll do like another like follow-up video, like rank the season 1 through 10 or something, or like what was your moment of the season. But for me, yeah, it was fine. It was not bad. It was fine. I can off the top of my head, I could name 10 seasons that are far worse. So that's a good thing.
I think that's what every season hopes for. Uh, well, I have truly had the time of my life making these videos, and Ryan, you have been such a joy and such a treasure of a co-captain through all of this. And even though I think our viewership is like in the double digits sometimes, it could be watched by nobody, and I have just had the absolute time of my life doing this with you. Thank you, as always, so very much for offering your insight, for agreeing with me on the players that matter, and occasionally disagree with me on stuff that, at the end of the day, we're like, it's fine.
Well, it's been my pleasure as well. It's been really fun. I'm kind of bummed that the season is over. But there will be other shows out there for us. Season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars just dropped the cast, so that might be a thing in our future.
I feel like both of us are going to start feeling the withdrawals, and they're going to get worse and worse every preceding Thursday. It's just going to be like, oh, I got to call Ryan because he works.
So,
so yeah, All Stars definitely in the near future.
Yes, and there's always a million Survivor things that we can talk about. So this will not be the last that you guys see of us, but we're so grateful to any and all of you who have followed along and put up with us, our long-ass videos. There's a lot that we like to talk about. I've got conspiracy theories. Alex has sassy moments. It's just fun for us. So anybody that has fun with us is always a plus. But we'll do it for fun, and we'll keep doing it as long as our computers work.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys again. It's been a blast. See you next season. Bye.